What's good, people? It's about that time to randomly relate reverse rants, no hate. So, check this out. Jake Paul versus Hasim Rahman Jr. Now, let me just tell y'all what this is. And it's, simple breakdown. I think Jake Paul record is like 5-0 or something like that. Now, Hasim Rahman Jr., he has 12 wins, 1 loss, 6 knockouts. Now, he's 30 years old. He got stopped in his last fight. Overall, he looks a little, more smooth in the ring than Jake Paul does. But I'm gonna tell you, Jake Paul, for where his skill set is, I can't fault him for fighting a guy like Hasim Rahman Jr. Now, what I mean by that is this: Jake Paul is far from being a polished fighter. So is Hasim Rahman Jr. Now, because he has more fights than him, he's seen as the better fighter overall. This is the type of competition where this is actually a step up for Jake Paul. Okay? But the thing about Jake and his brother Logan, they love to talk and brag about what they've done to try to make it seem like they want to put themselves in a position of being a legitimate elite fighter because of popularity's sake, which is why I disagree with, forget the guy's name that was, did an interview. I spoke about him, spoke about it in a previous video where he was talking about how certain fights, just because they're good fighters, don't mean it's pay-per-view quality. No, that's BS. See, you don't have to know a fighter. How does a fighter get known? By people seeing them. Pay-per-view, live attendance. So you may not know this guy. Everybody's been seen for the first time. Before the next time, right? It's the first time. So once you're saying it's not pay-per-view quality because even though these guys could fight or it was a good fight, nobody knew them. They wasn't popular. That's why people like Jake and Logan Paul can say, well then this is pay-per-view worthy because I am more popular than those guys, even though they're considered elite fighters or, seasoned world-class fighters, and I'm not. And you give them that power. You give the casuals that mentality because they're taking what you're saying out of context. But part of what you're saying, I get it, but it's inaccurate because you can watch an undercard. How many times have we watched the undercard and said, man, the undercard fights, or there was a undercard fight that was way better than the main event? So this is why, Jake and Logan have this mentality because these guys, look, Logan Paul just signed a deal with the WWE. Okay, Jake Paul, him and his brother are very smart business-wise. They know what they're doing. I think it's Logan is doing actually promoting fights as well. So, you have to look at what they're doing and understand. So while they're calling out fighters that are past their prime, retired, no longer active fighters, it doesn't make a difference as long as whether you think they won or lost, whether you want them to win or lose. The fact is you are watching them, and because you're watching them, they're in that position of, hey, okay, cool, all eyes are on us, win, lose, or draw. So in the meantime, they're in the gym training, trying to get better, and so they'll work their way up slowly but surely. No one ever said their goal is to become, world champion at whatever weight class that they go in. But guess what? They're making a lot of money without fighting real killers right now. You understand what I'm saying? And this is what they're doing. So, when I heard about this fight, I watched Hasim Rahman. He got stopped in his last fight. Let me say this about him. He moves his head, slip, slide, but then he stands straight up after he does that. He's there to be hit. He gets irresponsible defensively. He leads with his chin when he throws power shots. And he really doesn't hit that hard. And he does a lot of pawing with his jab, just putting it out there, slap shots to counter. And he swings shots to where he's like squares up, not in the proper stance. You know, not so much losing his balance, but to a point where he's throwing to where he's not in a good position to slip and counter. And those are the type of mistakes that all you have to do is just do that and get caught, and you're wide open, and he leaves his chin unprotected. So I'm pretty sure this is what I meant when I said this is why this fight's happening. Initially, he said that he was Jake Paul was supposed to be trying to fight Anderson Silva, so they called him. And that's the story he got. They called him and asked him when would he be able to come out and spar Jake Paul. So he said, I can come today. So he went out there, and basically they sparred. But he said then they wound up telling him they wanted him to fight Jake Paul. So my thing is, Jake Paul looked at weaknesses. If Jake Paul or Logan Paul felt that they're superstar elite fighters, they wouldn't be fighting guys like, KSI or fighting guys like Hasim Rahman. They'd be trying to call out Benavidez. They'd be trying to call out guys their size and that are elite fighters. They're not stupid. They're not going to do that. But by saying, hey, I'm fighting a guy that has more experience in the ring than I do, has his father who was a former world champion as his trainer, and I'm coming here to fight this guy. This doesn't make you an elite fighter by beating Hasim Rahman Jr. Now what I'm saying, I understand what Jake Paul is doing, and I don't feel like it's a bad move on his behalf. But what I'm saying is they're trying to talk their way into stardom as a fighters. They're bona fide certified YouTubers that got in the ring and they fought guys strategically that is much less of a threat than it was, in their primes. So that wasn't happening. This is why they're not fighting prime guys. So the thing is to say that I'm an elite fighter, I'm a world-class fighter. You got to beat world-class fighters and elite, fighters to get that. You don't just get that because you want people to see you that way, regardless to how much money you're making. And so my thing is with these world-class fighters, they need to take a page out of their book and learn out, what are they doing? How are these guys so successful with, getting their name and their profile up and they're all over the place? Your boxers, that's what you want to do, that's what you focus on. But, you can find better ways to promote yourself. So that's the thing, and that's why I like how Eddie Hearn handled, I think it was Logan, when he was talking to him, and he was telling him, Jake or Logan, whichever one of them it was, and he was telling him, you're decent at best. You're not that good. And he's right. But, perception is they're winning. They're getting in there with guys that used to be great or really good. So, at the end of the day, that's why this fight is happening. And Jake Paul can very well lose this fight, but also he can win it. Simply because Hasim Rahman Jr., again, if you've never seen him fight, just watch him fight. He's irresponsible on defense. Like I said, he'll slip, slide, move, then stand right up in a straight position without guarding his chin. He pauses shots too much and he leaves himself wide open when he throws shots. And when he's finished throwing a shot, he doesn't throw fair shots, finish with a nice combination, slip and move. He just throws shots. He's there to be hit. And I believe that Jake Paul sees that and they're banking on that. Somewhere in that fight, I'm going to catch him and I'm going to knock him out. Now, again, like I said, he may very well beat Jake Paul. And truthfully, he should. But this is strategic. This is not, I'm picking the toughest guy out there, or one of the toughest guys out there. And that's why he's picking Hasim Rahman Jr. Never fall in love with lies. Remember, the truth brings hate out of people, and I will catch y'all on the next video.